My name is Tula. I'm 29 years old. I was 18 when my life split into a before and an after. The kind of fracture you don't notice at first because it sounds like just another argument, just another bad day, until you realize everything. You has been pushed out the door with a single sentence. That night still echoes inside me with painful clarity. My dad stood near the kitchen counter, arms crossed, jaw tight, eyes cold in a way I had never seen before, and he said words that carved straight through me. At 18, my dad said I should leave because I wasn't worth the trouble anymore. I remember the silence that followed, the humming refrigerator, the faint ticking of the clock, my own heartbeat roaring in my ears. I kept waiting for him to soften, to sigh, to say he didn't mean it, but he didn't. My sister stood behind him watching, her face carefully arranged into something between concern and disappointment, as if she were witnessing a tragedy she had nothing to do with. But she did. She had everything to do with it. For weeks, small things had been going wrong around the house. Money missing from Dad's wallet, a bracelet of hers suddenly gone, whispers about my attitude, about how I was acting strange. I denied everything because there was nothing to admit. But denial only seemed to make Dad angrier, more convinced. My sister cried at exactly the right moments, spoke with exactly the right tremble in her voice, and I was too naive to understand that every tear was a nail in my coffin. That evening, Dad accused me again, his disappointment heavier than any shout. I tried to defend myself, tried to explain that I loved him, that I would never steal, never betray him, but my words sounded weak against the mountain of lies already built. Then came the ultimatum. Leave. No discussion. No second chances. I went numb. I walked to my room in a daze, my hands shaking as I pulled open drawers. My vision blurred by tears I refused to let fall until the door was closed. The cruelty of what happened next was almost cinematic in its precision. My sister got my bedroom before I finished packing. She didn't even wait for me to leave. While I was stuffing clothes into a worn duffel bag, she was already moving things around, already claiming space, already acting like I had vanished. I watched her from the doorway once, my chest aching, as she measured the walls with her eyes, calculating where her vanity would go. It was then, more than Dad's words, that something inside me truly broke. I wasn't just being thrown out. I was being erased. I left that house with 2 bags, a storm of humiliation, and nowhere to go. Pride kept me from calling friends. Shame kept me from asking for help. So I did the only thing I could think of. I slept in my car for 3 nights straight. 3 endless nights of cold seats, cramped muscles, and the kind of loneliness that feels physical, like a weight pressing down on your lungs. I parked in dim corners of unfamiliar streets, afraid of being noticed, afraid of being judged, afraid of everything. Every passing headlight made my stomach tighten. Every distant sound made my mind race. I cried silently, curled under a thin jacket, replaying the scene over and over, wondering how my own father could believe I was capable of such things, wondering what I had done so wrong that love could evaporate so quickly. By the 3rd night, exhaustion replaced shock. Survival replaced disbelief. I found a cheap room, then a job, then another job. Days blurred into months, months into years. I hardened in ways I never intended to. I learned how to smile when it hurt, how to nod when people misunderstood me, how to carry scars without letting them show. But the wound of that betrayal never truly healed because deep down I knew the truth. My sister had framed me. I just couldn't prove it. And Dad never called, never asked, never looked back. I built my life piece by piece, fueled by a quiet determination that bordered on desperation. I studied, worked, failed, stood back up, pushed forward. There were nights I wanted to give up. Mornings I stared at my reflection and barely recognized the woman staring back. Yet I kept going, driven by something stubborn and unbreakable. Still, no matter how far I went, a part of me remained frozen at 18, standing in that kitchen, hearing that sentence. Then, 12 years later, when I was no longer the scared girl in a car, but a woman who had fought for every inch of her existence, the past reached out in the most unexpected way. 12 years later, Dad found my profile online and sent a message. Just a simple notification on my screen, his name glowing like a ghost from another lifetime. My hands trembled exactly as they had the night I packed my bags. My chest tightened. 1,000 emotions collided: anger, longing, fear, resentment, hope. I stared at the message for a long time, unable to breathe, unable to think, knowing that whatever I chose to say next would carry the weight of 12 years of silence, pain, and unanswered questions. And in that moment, I understood something chilling and undeniable. Some wounds don't stay buried. Some stories don't end when you think they do. And some replies have the power to shatter everything all over again. 12 years later, when I saw my father's name appear on my screen, time didn't just slow down, it folded in on itself. My breath caught, my fingers hovering above the phone, as if even touching it might drag me back into the worst night of my life. His message was painfully simple, almost fragile in its politeness. He wrote that he had been searching for me for years, that he didn't know if he had the right to contact me, that he just wanted to know if I was okay. That single question, "Are you okay?" ignited something inside me that I had spent more than a decade trying to suppress. Okay. The word felt absurd. It felt cruel. It felt like asking a person standing in the rain if they were dry. My mind flooded with memories I had tried to bury. The kitchen, the accusation, the coldness in his voice, the unbearable humiliation of being treated like a criminal in my own home. And beneath all of that, the truth that had haunted me for years, my sister's lies. I stared at the message for what felt like hours, my emotions twisting into a storm I could barely control. Part of me wanted to ignore him, to deny him the closure he had denied me. Another part, the part that was still a daughter, despite everything, what ached for answers, for acknowledgement, for even the smallest sign that he understood what he had done. But there was something else too, something heavier, something that had been building quietly inside me for years. The need to finally speak my truth without fear. I began typing, then stopped, then deleted everything. How do you compress 12 years of pain into a few lines of text? How do you explain what it does to a person to be cast out? Not because of what they did, but because of what someone else convinced the world they had done? Eventually, the words came not from anger, but from exhaustion, the exhaustion of carrying a story no one had ever truly heard. I told him everything. I told him how deeply his words had cut, how being told I wasn't worth the trouble anymore had echoed in my mind through every struggle, every sleepless night, every moment of self-doubt. I told him I never stole anything, never betrayed him, never deserved the suspicion that had been thrown at me. I told him I slept in my car for 3 nights, terrified and heartbroken, while my own family carried on without me. And then, with a trembling honesty I didn't know I still possessed, I told him the part I had never been able to prove but had always known, that my sister had framed me, that the missing money and jewelry had not been my doing, that I had been sacrificed to a lie. I didn't insult him. I didn't attack him. I simply asked him one question that had lived inside me for 12 long years. Why didn't you ever ask me what really happened? After I sent the message, a strange calm settled over me, the kind that follows a violent storm. There was nothing more to add, nothing more to defend. For the first time, my truth existed outside of my own mind. Hours passed with no reply. Then my phone rang. His name filled the screen, and for a moment I couldn't move. When I finally answered, I didn't hear the strong, commanding voice I remembered from childhood. I heard something broken, something trembling. He could barely speak. Between uneven breaths, he told me he had read my message over and over, that every line felt like a weight crushing down on him. He said he had believed he was doing the right thing back then, that he had trusted what he was told, that he had convinced himself he was being a responsible parent. But now, reading my words, picturing me alone in a car at 18, he felt a kind of guilt he didn't know how to survive. His voice cracked as he confessed something that shook me to my core. Years after I left, inconsistencies had begun to appear. Small contradictions in my sister's stories, things that never fully made sense. Eventually, the truth surfaced in the ugliest way possible during a family dispute. She admitted in anger that she had lied about several incidents, that she had manipulated situations out of jealousy and resentment. By then, the damage was irreversible. I was gone, the family was fractured, and he was left with the unbearable realization that he had driven away the one person who had been telling the truth. He told me he had tried to find me but was too ashamed to reach out, too afraid of hearing exactly what I had finally written. Then he said the words that still haunt me. After reading my reply, he sat in his truck and cried for an hour. A grown man, my father, alone with the consequences of a decision made 12 years too late to undo. In that moment, I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel revenge. I felt the tragic weight of time, the understanding that some apologies arrive long after they can repair what was broken. We spoke for a long time, two voices navigating years of silence. Regret and unresolved pain. Nothing magically healed. Nothing instantly reset. But something shifted. The truth finally acknowledged. Loosened chains I had carried for most of my adult life. And if there is anything my story has taught me, it is this. A single lie can destroy years, but a single truth can still shake the world when it is finally spoken. If my journey moved you, if you believe stories like mine deserve to be heard, remembered and understood, then stand with me, subscribe to the channel, because some voices spend years waiting for the chance to be believed.